Hello wrestling fans! In this video we're going to be ranking every single cover in the WWE 2K game series. Each WWE 2K cover will be ranked into one of 5 tiers, those being how about that cover, which means how about that cover, good, indifferent, bad, and cover it up, which means it's so bad that that cover needed to be covered up. Our ranking system will mainly be focused on the design of each cover, which includes superstar renders, the backgrounds, and sometimes the position of the 2K logo. We are going to go through each cover in order of the game's release, so we'll start with WWE 2K14. 2K14 featured the People's Champ The Rock as the cover superstar, which in my opinion is a great choice, as I'm a huge fan of The Rock, but that has no bearing on whether I think the cover is good or not. Something that does have bearing though is The Rock's pose, an action shot, with him saying if you smell what The Rock is cooking, this is much better than some of the generic poses that we'll see in future installments. The render itself is well textured and fits the cover nicely, as you can see the contrast between the background and the render. The smoky effect around him also backs this up. If I was to have one criticism of this cover, it would be the 2K logo. I was never a fan of the scratch logo mashed with the 2K one. It's not a big deal, but I also think it tends to be a little bit oversized. But overall, I'm going to put this one in good. Now we can't move on just yet, because what's interesting about 2K14 is that it came with 2 alternate covers featuring Bryan. They were fan made covers, one from North America and one for the international release. This is the North American design, and I think it's good, maybe even better than the Rock cover. The background is slightly darker, and the addition of more white around the render certainly makes Bryan stand out. A negative which I mentioned with the Rock cover was the scratch logo, and the logo overall being oversized. Here, it's smaller, and I think it makes you focus more on the cover itself, and the main feature being Bryan. In my opinion, this design has a few plus points which makes it stand above the standard cover. So I'm going to rank this one in how about that cover. On to the international design, and before doing this video I must admit I had never seen this cover before, so if you're international and you have this cover, you're very unlucky. I don't like this cover at all, as the Bryan render looks like it's been plonked on. There's no texture, blending or anything to the render. The black shadow around him is awful, the same goes for the black smoke which is around his hands and legs. It has the complete opposite effect of what I liked about the white smoke on the North American cover. As for the render behind, was it really worth adding? It's being hidden by the front render. Maybe I'm being harsh, this is fan art after all, but it did go on sale. I think we need to cover it up. The disappointing thing about this international cover is it could have looked good if it had looked like this design that I had found online. This is pretty much the same idea, but executed much better. WWE 2K15, and we're presented with a red and white cover. What's interesting, and maybe not quite right, is that's the first thing that I notice, as opposed to the cover star. I think the combination of the background pops much more than WWE 2K14, but unfortunately, the render of John Cena lets the cover down. It's not a bad render, but it's not a particularly good one either. It's just kind of stock. I don't think this cover is as good as 2 of the covers that we ranked for 2K14, but it isn't bad either, so I'm going to rank this one in indifferent. WWE 2K16, and we have Stone Cold Steve Austin as the cover star. Good choice. The shattered glass is a nice touch, as it's symbolic to Austin, and also gives off a bit of a 3D vibe. Much like 2K14 with The Rock, it's another action shot, and I think although there's not much texturing, the shattered glass effect makes Austin look great. So hell yeah, I'm gonna rank this one as how about that cover. On to WWE 2K17. When this cover was originally released, I remember really liking it, because it looked really different. Not so much red. Brock's action pose looks very beastie, and it looks like he's just taken someone to Suplex City. My issue though is the background, With Austin's cover in 2K16, it felt like the background had some symbolism to Austin's persona, whereas this one is just a bit of a mess. You've got yellow lightning, fire, purple stuff, blurry bits. It's all slightly over the top. Another thing I'm not entirely sure about is the saturation on Brock's render.
That's what she said. Or he said.
But it just doesn't work for me. With us putting 2K15 in indifferent, and I don't particularly mind that cover, I'm going to rank WWE 2K17 as bad. WWE 2K18, and we've gone back to a pose look rather than an action shot with a render of Seth Rollins. My main gripe with these pose shots is it doesn't capture the character. We had this with Cena in 2K15, and this pose shot is even more basic, with Seth with his hands on his hips. A positive is I don't think Rollins' render is oversaturated like Brock's in 2K17. The saturation itself works well here. As for the background, well, I'm not entirely sure what it's meant to be. Is it splattered paint? Dunno. With the term burn it down associated to Seth Rollins, you would have thought they would have incorporated some fire in the background, especially with that 2K18 trailer where Rollins burns down the WWE memorabilia. My overall thoughts is it's not a bad cover, but it's pretty basic, and it could have been much better, so I'm going to make this one indifferent. A quick note before we move on, and something you might not have known, is we also had a WrestleMania edition which was the exact same cover except with the WrestleMania covers. We aren't going to rank this cover, but I thought it was worth mentioning. Now onto WWE 2K19. If 2K18 was basic, 2K19 is even more so. I don't even think this render was made by 2K, and it's a stock render from somewhere else. I could be wrong, but I remember it being a major talking point when it was revealed. On the plus side, at least this render has AJ performing his P1 signature pose, unlike Seth's in 2K18. The background reminds me a bit of the Austin style backdrop, as it creates that 3D look, though it's not very AJ specific. The funny thing is, even though it is very basic, I actually prefer this cover to 2K18. It's not particularly good, so I'll put it as indifferent. WWE 2K20, and the cover pretty much matches the game. If we look at the background, oh wait, there's nothing to look at. It's terribly bland. The only positive is having a dual cover, featuring Becky Lynch and Roman Reigns, which was a first for the 2K series. Other than that, there's not much to like about the cover, just like the game. So let's cover this one up. WWE 2K Battlegrounds, and something significantly different to what we've seen with the WWE 2K Sim series. What's refreshing is you're seeing models from in-game, showcasing the tagline "Brawl without limits." When you look at the cover, all sorts of things are going on, and it gives us an insight into the tone of the game. Another fun fact some might have not noticed is the pairing of superstars: Austin vs Rock, Reigns vs Cena, Undertaker vs Fiend. So clearly there's some thought that's gone into the placement of the superstars, and it's not just random. In my opinion, there's plenty to like about this cover, but I'm not entirely sure if I want to put this in the top tier. I'm just going to put it in good. On to WWE 2K22, and the most recent release in the WWE 2K series. This is the last of our 2K covers, and you instantly get the feeling of a much more professional and polished look. With the game's tagline, it hits different. If we look in comparison to previous years, this cover achieves that. For the first time across all the sim covers, this isn't a render of Ray as such, more a stylized photo of him leaping into action. The vibrant colours on the solid black background work really well, and the main focus of this cover is Rey Mysterio. On some of the other covers in the past, it's been the opposite, where the work has gone into the background and not so much the render of the superstar. Something I also think is if you was to remove the 2K22 logo, this could work as a piece of art. With the logo, however, it does make a great cover. Although I'm being picky here, I'm not the biggest fan of this logo. My reason for this is that the 2K22 part, in my opinion, is a bit weighty when compared to the WWE logo, but that's just my opinion. and by no means takes away that this is one of the best covers we've seen in a fair few years. For 2K22, I'm going to rank this one in How About That Cover, because no, seriously, how about that cover? So there you have it, that was every WWE 2K cover ranked. Out of 11 covers, we have 3 that were How About That Cover, 2 which made good, 3 indifferent, 1 bad, and 2 that we simply had to cover up. But what do you think? And how would you rank these 2K covers? Make sure to leave us a comment, why not drop a like on this video, and until the next one, thanks for watching.